Adam Braun had a bright career ahead of him on Wall Street, working for a leading consulting firm and coasting on the fast track to becoming a Wall Street trader. But all of that changed on a trip overseas. That's when a chance encounter with a little boy on the streets of India changed everything. He asked him what he wanted most in the world. The answer stunned Adam and changed his life's ambitions forever. The little boy uttered just 2 words: a pencil. That's what he wanted most in the world. 6 years later, Adam Braun has taken on the challenge of providing the infrastructure and resources for educating over 57 million children in the developing world. His organization is called, you guessed it, Pencils of Promise. He founded the organization with a $25 investment after quitting his job on Wall Street. And as he told Full Frame contributor Sandra Hughes, he hasn't looked back since.
So let's start at the beginning. Tell me about your family, your upbringing. I know from reading your book, it has had a lot to do with and still influences your life. Tell me about that.
Well, we grew up with a really closely knit family, but I think it's really hard to understand where you're going without knowing where you come from. And so our family history was a really big part of the upbringing itself. And so I knew that my family had come over to this country literally just 1 generation ago. My dad arrived here on a boat. My mom grew up in a small town in upstate New York. And so the one thing that was prioritized in both of their lives and ultimately in our household was access to education and how it could create greater opportunity within an individual's life. And truly from one generation to the next, you could see enormous changes in opportunity. And so that was a big, big part of the upbringing.
So you knew you wanted to do something that was purposeful, but you were saying in your book that you really, the advice you got was, well, you need to go down this Wall Street path, you need to make a huge living, and then you can distribute, you know, your wealth. You can start a charity, whatever.
Yeah.
So what changed?
Well, I think I just started to view the world differently as a result of some of my experiences that I went through as a college student. I think there's this kind of pervasive belief that's existed for generations that profit and purpose are pretty distinctly separate, that you have your work life and that allows you to make money and amass possessions and ultimately be able to take care of your immediate family as well. But then separately, once you have enough, you find a way to give back. And 2 generations ago, that actually didn't even happen in your lifetime. People kind of bequeathed their fortune to the next kind of generation. I think the previous generation from mine started to give away their wealth in their lifetime, but usually at the end of their careers. And I think my generation is kind of one of the first that started saying, no, we want to do it as part of our careers. And so once I went into the developing world and I saw the huge income disparity that exists, I realized, it doesn't have to be in huge amounts to make a huge difference. And that ultimately you could find ways to create what I like to think of as a for-purpose career, not necessarily driven by profitability or lack of profitability, but ultimately serving a mission.
So you were backpacking through India, and you call yourself an introvert. I don't really believe that anymore because you seem to be able to talk very well and express yourself. But at the time, you were sort of introverted. You're backpacking through India, and you're talking to kids mostly, right?
Right. I had a habit of asking one child in each country, what do you want most in the world? And then I'd have them write it down on a piece of paper. When I got to India, I asked this boy who was begging on the streets, what do you want most? And his answer wasn't what I thought he would say, a house, a boat, or a car. He wanted a pencil, and that was it. And as I probed more, I realized this boy had never been to school before, and that if anyone gave him money, it actually perpetuated the cycle of him being on the street. And so the one thing that he wanted most, and I think there's just such profound wisdom sometimes in the answers of children, was access to education. And so I gave him my pencil, he just lit up, and I started carrying around pens and pencils through every country that I would travel through.
Tell me about that first experience when you decided, okay, I'm not going to continue on Wall Street. You were standing in a bank.
Yeah.
Tell me that story.
Well, when I came back from a lot of my initial travels, I went through a kind of furious round of interviews with the top investment banks, the top consulting firms, and the #1 private equity firm, and came out with 2 great job offers. One of them was at one of the top investment banks, and one of them was at one of the top consulting firms. And most people told me to take the banking job because it was actually a lot more money. And one great mentor advised me to take the consulting job because it would actually provide me with more learnings for the career I aspired towards, which was running a nonprofit. And so I turned down the job at Lehman Brothers that was paying me more money and took the job at Bain & Company. And about a year later, Lehman Brothers declared bankruptcy. And my world was kind of shaken because what I thought was supposed to be the stable path might not have been so stable. And so as I reevaluated things, I went to the Philharmonic Symphony for the very first time, and I saw this man playing with so much passion, this one piano, and I thought, that's what I want. I want to feel that passionate about something in the same way that he does about his instrument, and the name Pencils of Promise popped in my head. And about a week or two later, I went into the bank in my hometown, and I said, I want to start an organization called Pencils of Promise to build one school. What do I have to do? And the woman said, you have to start with at least $25 to open up a new bank account. And I was turning 25 that month. And so I thought that's a good karmic sign. So I put $25 into a bank account. And I think in a lot of ways, I also wanted to prove to not only myself, but anybody else that regardless of age or status or your financial situation or your location, you can create something of real meaning and real merit with as little as $25.
And that first school was for your grandma.
Right.
Tell me about that.
On my father's side, both of my grandparents, my dad's mom and his father, were both Holocaust survivors. My grandmother, who we call Ma, in particular, was sent to Auschwitz when she was 14 years old with her 12-year-old sister, 26 other family members, including her mother, and all of them were gassed and killed the first night. She was the lone survivor. And through a series of miracles over 14 months through several different concentration camps, she survived. I mean, I knew that I wanted to impact communities. I knew I was so invested in education, but ultimately I wanted to honor my grandmother and ensure that her legacy was carried forward for generations. You know, as a survivor, as somebody who had been through so much, I knew that building a school would be the most meaningful thing I could possibly participate in to truly honor her.
What was your grandma's reaction when she saw the school or pictures of the school?
Well, as you mentioned, she really, out of anybody, did not want me doing this. Because, you know, she was worried about my safety and why are you going into these places? And I didn't tell her that it was for her until the school was completed, and then I came back and just before her 80th birthday that night I sat her down and I said, Ma, I want to tell you about why I did this. And I showed her the photo of the girls, our first students, and she, you know, was already kind of moved. Then I showed her a photo of the actual school, and it was amazing because she said, oh my God, this is what my school looked like when I was a little girl in a rural village in Hungary. My school looked just like this one. And then I said, well, now I want to show you why I actually went out there to build this school. And I showed her the plaque, a photo of the actual school sign, and she read it slowly, you know, Pencils of Promise, belong for Wrong Education Ministry, lovingly dedicated to. And when she saw her name on there, her hands started to shake, and they were on mine, and she just started bawling, and I was bawling. And it was one of the most emotional moments of my life, but truly one of the most gratifying and fulfilling as well.
The model of is to sort of empower other people to do the same thing that you did.
Yeah.
And so you've had people jump on board from, you know, kids doing lemonade stands to people riding their bikes across the country.
Yeah, I mean, we've had over 33,000 people go on pencilsofpromise.org and create a unique fundraiser with ambitions, whether it be just to educate one child, which you can do for $25, to train a teacher, which you can do for $500, to build a classroom, $10,000, or to build a full school, which is at still $25,000. And so, you know, it's amazing just to watch how many people will say, you know something, I'm going to make this happen.
And the idea is not so much that you go in, build the school, and that you're in charge.
No,
it's really about empowering the local community.
Our programs are almost a reaction to what many of our staff, including myself, witnessed as failed projects in the field. And what we saw was that time and time again, Westerners came in with this expectation that if you gave somebody a gift or aid or charity, that it would be successful. And other spaces might work that way. I mean, with health, you can inject somebody with a vaccine, and they're then immune to that disease. But education, you can't inject somebody with. They have to own it themselves. They have to strive for it. They have to feel a connection to it. And it has to be a holistic experience. It's not just the individual, it's the family, it's the teachers, the principal, the community leaders. And so every one of our schools, about 20% of the funding comes from the community itself. So a fifth of the entire project cost is from the community, but they don't have the cash, so they make it up in materials and labor, which leads to them physically building their own school, so that 2 years down the line, when things start to break down, they're not saying, hey, where's that Westerner that gave me my school to come, fix the roofing? They're saying, no, I did the roofing. It's my job to go and fix it. And they're also that much more invested in the children's educational outcomes.
When I was reading your book, I think the thing that struck me the most, because I have 3 children, is don't let your youth get in your way.
Yeah.
Or hold you back.
Right.
What a great little mantra to tell kids, young people, you don't have to wait until you've built your company and you're 60 years old.
Right.
You can do it right now.
Yeah, the thing that I shared time and time again on various stages and small rooms and corner conversations with young people across the country and really around the world now was that the most powerful element of youth is that you don't know yet what's impossible. And within that, you are willing to try because you don't have wisdom. And wisdom is really valuable, but wisdom is the accumulation of experience. And with that experience, you develop, for better or worse, a set of knowledge that tells you what is possible in the world. And young people don't have that wisdom, and so they're naive enough to try. And in doing so, they're the ones who eventually prove that things can be made possible. But you're never too young to start. And in fact, within youth, there's incredible power and strength.
Well, I think your life really is a story worth telling.
Thank you.
Next, seeing their work in print is a dream for many aspiring writers. One nonprofit organization here in the United States has made that dream come true for hundreds of writers. But the identity of these published authors may surprise you.